This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome to The Edge. I am your host today, Brandon-Shea Mutala, and joining me is my co-host, Miss Amy Nelson, also known as Vok.
Oh, no. I am not duplicitous.
No? Well, maybe you just don't know that you're duplicitous.
Maybe I'm asleep right now.
Welcome. Happy New Year. We are actually recording this on the afternoon of January 1st, 2018. This is my first podcast of the year that I'm recording. And I know it's not your first podcast of the year, Amy. You've already been hard at work sipping your Earl Grey, haven't you?
Yes, we had a recording earlier for Earl Grey, and so just excited to get back to my two favorite series, Next Generation and Discovery.
And your third favorite series now, Black Mirror.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
And joining us today as well to talk Star Trek Discovery is Justin Oser, one of the co-hosts of Earl Grey. How you doing, Justin?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here, have a little Earl Grey invasion, and we've both now recorded more podcasts than you so far this year, Brandon. I'm sure that won't last for too long, but...
Did you guys have fun last night in the disco party that we had playing Staying Alive all night over in our main party area?
Heck yeah, it was a party.
It was a Happy New Year party on the Edge. So
just kept going over and over and felt like, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah. Well, we've got two discussions for the news segment of our episode tonight. One I'm just going to kind of throw on Justin here because I'm not prepared for it at all, but I know Justin is. Justin, we just had a soundtrack come out.
Yeah, we did.
I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. Can you believe that? I've been so darn busy, but I know you have, and I know you've been wanting to talk about it. So why don't you just give us a rundown of it a little bit? So how do you have it? How do you have a copy of it? And because I pre-ordered the physical CD, and it's not coming out for a while yet. So
wait, you got to tell. This is a surprise to me. What's going on here?
It's a surprise to me too. I didn't know he was going to talk about this.
Yeah, it's a surprise to everybody.
Wow. Okay, so tell us what's going on with the soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things about the soundtrack. So it covers music from the first 9 episodes of Discovery. So this is a special digital-only release. It's my understanding that for the physical release of the CD and the vinyl, that's going to cover the whole season and that there'll be a second separate digital release. So I think currently it's available on iTunes and Amazon, and you can also get it on Spotify if you subscribe to Spotify. I got it on Amazon, so I bought the tracks. There are, I think it's 21 tracks. Because you surprised me, I didn't have a chance to check this out, but I can look here. But it's 21 tracks. It's a little under an hour of music, which I was happy with because I thought maybe it would just be like a couple minutes each track, but it has the main theme. It also has an extended version of the theme at the end, which is really interesting. And it has different tracks from most of the episodes. And listening to the music together, it's very interesting because it gives you a different experience. And I found after I heard that soundtrack and then went back to rewatch the first 9 episodes, it gave me a different experience, and I was noticing the music more. So. But there's a nice variety of music from, peaceful scenes, dramatic scenes, like all over the place. And they do have that track that you see in, I think it's Choose Your Pain, when Tilly and Burnham are jogging and there's that like meaty sounding thing. They actually have that on there.
I did listen to that one. I have Spotify and I do have access to the music. I just haven't had a chance to listen to it. And I listened to that plus 2 or 3 more, but I didn't listen to the whole album, but I specifically looked for that track.
Yeah, and what was also interesting was like, and I hadn't thought about this or noticed this before, as I listened to certain tracks, I saw or I heard like certain instruments or certain choices that Jeff Russo is making that reminded me a little bit of Michael Giacchino, who does the soundtracks for the Kelvin movies. So it's a really interesting experience and like a wide variety of music on the soundtrack. I enjoyed it a lot, and I definitely recommend people check it out.
So I have a question for you. So I just finished my rewatch over the break. And one thing I noticed about the theme, like when it first came out, I was like, oh, I love the theme. It's so nice. But now on my second go around, I'm not, I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but I'm not really enjoying it. I don't feel like there's a theme or a melody that I can connect with. Like when I watch Game of Thrones, like I hear that theme song and I know it, I can follow it. And this one is just sort of blah to me now.
Fascinating.
How are you guys liking the theme song after your second and third time?
Yeah.
Do you hear a melody in it that you connect with?
Yes.
I do actually. Like, well, and for me, like the first time that I heard it as like a preview before the first episode actually dropped, because they released it that way. And I listened to it and I was like, I really don't know if I like this. So I listened to it a couple more times and like, okay, I'm liking it more and more. And by the time actually that first episode dropped, I was loving it, and I've loved it ever since. And like for me, I've heard this comment a lot that in the middle, there isn't like, a theme or something interesting to hold on to, but I think there is, and I actually find myself humming part of it, the part that's like da 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 da. I mean, there's like a certain part in there that I really like, and that's interesting, Amy, because I've actually loved it more and more over time instead of less.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It'll be interesting though if you hear the extended version, which has like an extra 30 seconds and it's arranged a little bit differently. The ending's different if you like that more, because I have seen comments from some people saying that they like the extended version more.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, the other piece of news that we're going to be talking about, while not directly Star Trek related, it is, I think, relevant. It's a relevant topic. It's big in the news right now, and it's the episode of Black Mirror. The first episode of season 4 is called USS Callister, and it's a Star Trek-inspired episode. Now, as far as in a nutshell of what Black Mirror is Black Mirror itself, in case you haven't seen it, is an anthology television show. Now, this is honestly almost what I would prefer that Star Trek Discovery had been, in that each season of Star Trek would be a completely different story. Well, Black Mirror is a little bit different in that every episode is an individual story. So, not a word of a lie, you could pick any episode of Black Mirror as your first episode and just randomly watch it, because there's no overlapping characters, there's no overlapping plot threads, there's no nothing, right? There are, like, if you watch them all, there are certain technologies that are consistent within the universe, so it clearly all does take place in the same universe. For instance, there's a pregnancy test that appears in one episode and you see it in another episode as well. It's just the type of home pregnancy test appears more than once, and there's other technologies that appear throughout it. But other than that, there really is no thread. And there's been a lot of buzz about this episode coming out because, Black Mirror has a bleak outlook on life. And I was texting with Brandy Jacola, who's the co-host on Live from the Edge the other day, and she's like, I don't know who said it, but somebody told me that Black Mirror is like the Twilight Zone without hope. And I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good summary of what the show is. It does have a little bit of a darker take, and, not every episode has a happy ending. But it really, the whole show itself is a critique on social media in it, and not necessarily every episode, but in general, the show is how technology is just a little bit out of control, how social media can get just a little bit out of control, and social media and the way that people use social media is is a constant thread throughout most of the episodes, and they are really fascinating. So they've got this episode that's just come out this year called USS Callister, and it's clearly inspired by Star Trek. And, you know, this main character, I don't remember the names. I've watched the episode twice, but he has this virtual reality world that he goes into and basically plays Space Fleet, where he's the main captain. And we don't want to get too spoilery in this because, you know, I recommend that people go and watch it. But one of the interesting things that I've seen online right now is there's been a, you know, polarizing reaction kind of on the Star Trek community. Surprise, surprise. And people that don't know what Black Mirror is don't know what they're getting into when they watch this. And they're expecting something else completely when they go into this episode. So, like, the only thing I can tell you is when you're going into it, there's a Star Trek feel to the episode very, very, very clearly. And there's a lot of elements within the story that happen that you're like, oh, that's kind of Star Trek or Galaxy Quest or something like that. But at the end, like, it is not a Star Trek episode. It's not meant to be a Star Trek episode. There's no, you know, nothing like that. Now, Justin, you haven't watched it, and we're going to try and convince you to watch it. Now, Amy, though, you've watched it, and this was your first episode of Black Mirror. And I didn't tell you what I just told the audience listening right now. So you went in raw. So let's try not to get too spoilery, but tell me what you thought of the episode, Amy.
Yeah. So when you'd asked me to watch and I saw, you know, some tweets and stuff posted, I was like, oh, I was talking with Nick, who's also on the Babel conference. And he was like, yeah, just sort of like what Brandy said. You know, he'd watched a couple, but just didn't feel like it was uplifting and sort of negative and a darker tone to it. And so I was like, oh, what am I getting myself into? So I sort of did have that preconceived notion to that. So when I watched it, and then you had told me that it's, you know, very episodic, so that because I was worried starting season 4 that I was going to be totally lost in the story. And you're like, no, don't worry about it. So, and I love episodic TV. So I was like, great, this sounds really good. So yeah, when I watched it, definitely the Star Trek theme, like the story is told through a Star Trek perspective. Like it's the background of what the story is trying to tell. So I really appreciated it. And it was just so fun to see little connections from Star Trek. And like you said, Galaxy Quest, like, you know, because here is this guy and just this total nerd coder programmer, you know, and just building a life, which I've seen many people do, like in the gaming community and stuff, and just wanting to go there to live in this experience where they don't have to deal with life. And so it was fun to see that through a Star Trek genre, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm. Now, based on that, do you think you may watch more episodes of the show, or you're like, this is just not my cup of Earl Grey?
No, I'm actually looking forward to going back and seeing a couple of these other things. I've never seen an episode of the X-Files. I know.
What?
Never in your life?
Oh my
Never.
gracious sakes alive.
Amy, you know there's a lot of stuff I haven't seen, and I have definitely seen the X-Files.
Oh my God. Where's your nerd card? I need your nerd card right now. You don't have to like the X-Files, but you haven't seen it?
Yeah, when X-Files was on, well, and I know it's been on for a while. I was getting my master's.
Almost 25 years ago is when it.
Yeah, I was getting my master's and, you know, starting my career as a teacher, and I did not have time. But when I went through my master's program, one guy was like total X-Files, and that's all he talked about. And I was this close to watching an episode, but I didn't. Yeah. So.
Anyway, well, if you do, then I'm going to recommend you go back and you watch San Junipero, which is from season 3 of Black Mirror.
Okay.
Okay. And my favorite episode is also from season 3. It's the longest episode. It's called Hated in the Nation, and it's an hour and a half. And what I love about that episode is, like, for 20 minutes, you think the episode is going this way, and 20 minutes into it, it goes this way, and you're just like, what happened? This is amazing. Cool. So I really recommend those two. I absolutely positively recommend, if you're going into this show, to not watch the first episode first. That's my personal opinion. It is a strong episode, and that'd be my recommendation. But, you know, San Junipero, I would actually claim to say has a positive outlook at the end, and it's one of the few that does have a positive outlook at the end. And Hated in the Nation is just absolutely outstanding. But yeah. Justin, have we intrigued you? Do you think this is something you might visit?
I don't know. I'm honestly, I'm a bit undecided because I know a lot of people have been talking about it, and you know that it's inspired by Star Trek and all of that. But as I've said a few other places, you know, what I tend to watch nowadays is Star Trek and comedies, pretty much. And I don't watch much, you know, besides Star Trek for things that are dramatic. And part of that is because I want to see something that has a positive outlook or that's part of a positive framework. Now, there's a lot in Star Trek, especially, you know, certain parts of it that's darker or that seems a little bleaker, but it's all within this context of something that's hopeful and a better future. And I like that because I think that's a much rarer thing to see. It's much more common to see something that is much darker. And I find, you know, I used to watch things more that were darker, I guess when I was a kid or when I was a teenager. But I've found, you know, over time that I don't enjoy that experience as much, and it just gets me down and I don't want to watch it. But I'm considering it. I'm thinking about it because a lot of people have been talking about it.
Yeah. I would say that this episode this is not the darkest, like, this is not darker than anything you would see on Star Trek. Like, for when Star Trek gets dark, like, this is dark. But I would not say that there are episodes of Black Mirror, hands down, are like way darker and bleaker than anything you will ever watch on Star Trek. But this episode, USS Callister, I would not say would be darker than every single episode of Star Trek. I don't think so. I think there's, you know, I think there are some that are darker in certain ways.
Well, and I found with USS Callister, like, I was very invested with the characters, so surprising after just watching a few moments. And there's definitely awesome themes of, you know, coming together, working together to try and overcome their obstacle in this episode, and, you know, having empathy and getting different perspectives of the main character, the captain, who's, you know, sort of putting him through this. You know, I think there's definite themes that, you know, social commentaries very similar with what Star Trek did that I found very interesting. And I was at the end, you know, cheering for these characters for what they did and accomplished and came together and trusted each other. So it's a good episode.
And there's wonderful homages to the original Star Trek in it. You know, there's a wonderful shot in this that's it's going to sound funny, but like, it's a wonderful homage to an episode Charlie X.
Yes.
There's a wonderful homage to Star Trek 2. There's a couple of homages to Star Trek 2 in here. And, you know, it plays on the stereotypes of what people think Star Trek is as well, while it's changing the story and stuff. So I would definitely recommend it. Okay. So we're not going to go too in depth into it again. This is not an episode review of it. It's just discussion in the news because it is a relevant topic. And I would recommend the episode. It sounds like Amy would recommend the episode.
I would.
So. And,
well, okay. In what you've said in the last few minutes, I think I'll check it out.
Yeah, you gotta let me know what you think of it. So
I will.
Maybe we'll do a Patreon bonus or something for that.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, let's move out of the news into our general discussion on the Star Trek Discovery here, and we're just going to have a little discussion on some of our predictions for the upcoming. What is it? 6 episodes?
Six episodes.
6 episodes.
Chapter 2 of season 1, I think they're calling it.
Chapter 2. And how I want to do this is I kind of want to do this because we don't know a lot, and I kind of want to talk about the episode titles.
Yes.
Okay, that's how I want to approach this, because, you know, we can have all of our theories. We can have all of our, I saw this and therefore I think this. And just on my rewatch, I clearly think that there was a man in that cell in Choose Your Pain, the guy that got his head kicked in. I am convinced that is the most important character in Star Trek franchise history, you know, but I mean, that's just me, and that's my own fan theories. But,
yes, that's you.
And no, it's not Ash Tyler. It's the guy that got his head kicked in before we met Ash Tyler.
It's definitely not Ash Tyler, because I took a really close look, and it's somebody else. But
it's the real Ash Tyler. Anyways.
Okay. I see where you're going. Okay.
Anyways, but what we're going to do here is we're just going to talk about the episode titles. So I'm going to read them right now, and then we're going to kind of go through them one by one. And I just want you to give me maybe one or two things that you think the title might mean and how it might portray in the episode to come. So the episode coming out right away is called Despite Yourself, and we're recording this on Monday. It's going to be released on Friday, which means that 2 days from here we're going to be watching it. Despite Yourself, The Wolf Inside, Vaulting Ambition, What's Past is Prologue, The War Without, The War Within, and Will You Take My Hand? So those are the 6 episodes that we got coming. So we're just going to talk just a brief touch on them. First of all, Justin, we're going to start with you. What do you think about Despite Yourself? Where do you think we're going to be going with this?
Okay, so first of all, I must have prepared for a very different episode because I just wrote down like a bunch of predictions and we're doing it based on the episode title, which is cool. You like to surprise us.
Yes.
Because I hadn't really thought too much about I've thought about a few of the episode titles, but not too much about.
Well, then I'll tell you what, we'll go back
overall.
at the end and we'll come back and we'll say, give us a couple of your favorite predictions that you got. We'll do that at the end.
Okay, that's fair.
Remind me so we don't forget.
Okay. So Despite Yourself is the next one. Let's see. I think that has something to do with Stamets. At the end of the 9th episode, they've gone to this place. They're not sure where it is. He's got this milky substance in his eyes, and he says something about that he's able to see what I take to mean all of these like alternate universes. So, like, I in some way take that to be that. They're going to have to rely on Stamets to get them out of this jam, but he's going to have to do that in spite of what he wants to do.
So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the definition of the word despite right now.
Okay.
So this is interesting. Okay. So despite is a preposition without being affected by or in spite of, right? And so the example they give is he remains a great leader despite age and infirmity. Right. So despite yourself. So it's like you'd think that you're going to impede it, but despite yourself, you're not going to be impeded by it. That kind of thing. So like that's what I'm getting out of the title.
Well, when I hear that, I instantly go to Lorca. And I think with his maybe looming prospect of losing Discovery, that we might see him go against, or not take his accommodations. Well, obviously, because they're in different space, but that it's going to be a continuation of that story with Lorca and him wanting to go, or him being called back to Starbase 46, but then not going and then continuing his mission with Discovery, even though he knows it's going against Starfleet orders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is going to be a Stamets episode myself. That it's because he's got these impediments on him that he's like, he's sick, he's hurt from these jumps, and despite the state of himself, he's still going to be able to save the crew somehow. So I don't know. I'm thinking this is going to be a Stamets episode myself, right off the bat, because we saw him. I keep forgetting. Like, I want to sing. I wish somebody could do it for me. Instead of Betty Davis eyes, we could like sing about Stamets, and it could be like, he's got Gary Mitchell eyes. What do you think? He's got Gary Mitchell eyes.
There you go.
Does that work?
Go.
We should like
that
write
works.
a whole song. Totally. I love Betty Davis eyes. Okay. So The Wolf Inside. So I can start my prediction on this one here. Hands down, based on this title, this is the episode that we find out that Voke is Tyler.
I disagree.
Agreed.
Whoa! Disagree, Justin.
I think
come
it's
back to you.
my turn to surprise you, but I disagree. But go ahead.
Amy, why do you think that? Why do you, just because of the title, or what do you think?
Well, and after my rewatch and seeing the interaction with Laurel and Ash, especially at that last scene where Ash is at the brig, and Laurel's there and saying, "It'll be soon, don't worry," type of, feeling towards him. There's something there. And then, couple that with Tyler's PTSD and what he's going through. So there's something inside of him that he needs to get through. And then if it's true that he is, a sleeper Voke type of thing, then that's going to all come to fruition.
I'll add an addendum onto mine in that, like, we could find out as the cliffhanger from the previous episode like something is revealed, and then this is the episode dealing with that. Could also be how they go it. But I mean, like, I think this will be like definitely a Voke episode. Justin, you disagree. I want to hear this.
I disagree because, okay, so I've been struggling for a while with this theory about Tyler is Voke. And so I went into my rewatch of the first 9 episodes in the last couple of days, trying to push that aside and trying to push aside some of the real world stuff like Javid Iqbal, who's, credited as right, doesn't really exist and all that stuff. So I tried to set that aside and think, okay, like just within the confines of this episode, what do I think about that theory? So that's one of the things that I took a look at. And I think that, they're threading an interesting line through a lot of it. I mean, first of all, if I hadn't seen anything on social media, I probably wouldn't have picked up anything related to that until some of the later episodes, maybe like 8 and 9. I wouldn't have really thought about it at all.
I'm going to interject because I did my rewatch with my mother, who knows nothing about all of the podcasts or fan response. She doesn't even listen to my postcard show. Oh. That's okay. Okay. But she did not even mention, breathe, suspect that there was...
Even up to the 9th episode, right?
Yeah, so she is just completely oblivious. And I didn't spoil it for her. I just let her, it was interesting to watch her. But yeah, she didn't pick up on that. I think as a general viewer, I mean, I wouldn't call her a Star Trek fan, but as a general viewer, I'm sure that most people would not pick up on it.
Aubrey didn't either. Like, Aubrey and I watched together. She's 7. I mean, like, she's a little younger and she doesn't catch up on all the nuances. I try and pause it. Like, we pause it when watching and I explain things to her and whatnot. But in episode 9, when like things were going down and whatnot, and I tried to explain a little bit more and stuff, when I told her the theory though, her eyes were like as wide as saucers and ready to fall out of her skull. And she's like, and when we just rewatched it the last couple of days, and she's like, the scene when Tyler like breaks down and they show the flashbacks to like the knives and stuff like this, she's like, that's them changing him into the human. And she's like, you need to tweet that. She's like, tell me to I'm like, people know.
So like in thinking about it in that context, now one of the first things I'll say is, I think I could very likely be wrong about this, but in case there is something to it, I kind of hope that Tyler is not actually Voke. And I have a bit of an alternate explanation because I think, wouldn't it be really great if the writers had put those things in, knowing that people will pick it up on social media and everybody will be convinced about this, and then they'll take it in a different direction to totally undercut that theory. I'd love for that to be the case. And it would also mean that the assault you see with Tyler would be more real, and I think would mean more than if he was actually somebody else. So my thought about what could be happening, because like there's one big inconsistency that's a problem if you think Tyler isn't Voke, which is that L'Rell hasn't been on this ship that prison ship for 7 months. We know she's been elsewhere, right? Unless for whatever reason she's coming and going on the ship, but I don't think that's the case. But I think one of the things that's possible is that he's had something implanted in his memory that he's been there for 7 months, but he has actually endured, the torture and the sexual assault and all of that. And there's been something that's been programmed within him to go off at a certain point, and he's being used as an agent, but I think he is still fully human. And that Voke has actually been off somewhere else doing something else, and he's going to come back in. I mean, and one of the things that's interesting also is that, recently they put out some new, I guess you could call them posters for different characters for the second half of the season. And one of them was Voke. And if, Tyler is going to be revealed to be, I mean, that just indicated to me that actually Voke separately would be coming back. Now, I could be wrong about all of this, but I'd very much like it to be the case that this is right and that this is actually Tyler who was, really put in this abusive situation.
See, I would love that. I would love to have a scene where Voke and Tyler meet, and I would be just fine with that. I don't need this to be the thing. And honestly, like when I watched Choose Your Pain the first time, I watched the episode. I didn't think for a second he would have been Voke. I didn't think of that at all, right? And it was later after I had watched it that the social media thing started happening, and my initial reaction was no. But, I'm going to tell you how I interpret the sexual assault scene, even on a rewatch here. And, there was that thread that Heather Barker had where she's like, did it look like sexual assault to you? Had you not known that Tyler himself was going through a sexual assault and was talking about it, if all you did was watch that scene, would you interpret that it was sexual assault? And I can't say that I would, because they filmed it very sensually. She's growling like a Klingon, and that's how
he's clearly, in distress.
Yeah, not in the scenes of the sexual assault. I don't think.
I thought that's what I did see, that he was clearly like in a lot of distress during that time.
So I don't know.
In my second rewatch, I felt like he was disassociating himself during that. Like, I sort of felt like when they showed his face and like his eyes were just sort of going back, like he was trying to just not be there.
So just give me a second here to continue on my thing here, and what my thought is based on that scene is, so this is what I'm starting to think. So I'm starting to think that whatever has been done to him to make him be human, to make him be Ash Tyler, like whatever brain mumbo jumbo they've done to him is breaking down. And so his memories are starting to get confused. When we last saw Voq and L'Rell together in episode 4, the writers and the way that it was portrayed when they were taking that warp core or whatever it was out of the Shenzhou.
Should we couple now?
Should we uncouple? They used the word uncouple.
Yeah, I mean, they were flirting very much.
They were flirting, and they were definitely playing on a sexual tension that was happening in the way they were talking and the looks that they were giving. So this is the story that I've filled in myself, and I could be wrong. So I think that they had a relationship on the way to the matriarchs of whatever that planet was. They had a relationship, and that is a flashback to Voq and L'Rell having sex. But because it's breaking down and he's confused, he's getting like, okay, well, if I'm a human and I don't like this, and so the other flashback where we hear all those saws and stuff like that, he looks human in the entire thing, but there is a quick flash of an eye that could be a Klingon eye. So again, he's having this stuff breaking down, so he's thinking that's a torture instance. And again, maybe it's not a torture instance. Maybe it's just the medical procedure that was done. And through this filter of being a human being of Ash Tyler, he's now seeing it as a torture and a sexual assault. But it was done while he was the Klingon, and it was a relationship when he was the Klingon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's possible, but I hope that's not the case, because it kind of, invalidates the impact of, Tyler going through assault and makes it just like jumbled memories. And, again, I could be wrong, but I hope that the way that they're going is that there really is, an assault and abuse there that's real and isn't just explained away as jumbled memories.
It'll be interesting to see. I liked Voq, and I didn't want him to go away, right? I don't know. I think the character's neat. So, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's what I think about the wolf inside anyways. I think this is the episode we're going to find out that he is Voq, and he's got to deal with it, because Voq is the wolf inside Ash Tyler. So that's my thought anyways.
Yeah, when we see the episode, you'll hear one of us screaming like, I was right!
I was right. And meanwhile, we're all wrong. And this is actually a prequel to The Wolf in the Fold, and we're going to see Red Jack.
God. Oh, yeah. I mean, but that's the great thing about doing these predictions. Most probably, most of them or all of them will be wrong, but it's fun, and maybe one of them will be right. That would be cool.
Okay, Vaulting Ambition is our next episode that we're going to talk about here. Vaulting Ambition. Amy, what do you think?
Okay, this is, I'm just calling it right here. This is where Michael Burnham gets back into Starfleet. She's recognized, she's absolved from being the mutineer, and she's on her path back into Starfleet. And we also get to see Tilly no longer be a cadet. She's now an ensign.
Ooh, you took one of my predictions.
Oh,
that Tilly would be an ensign. I had that in here.
Yeah.
Not a captain?
Well, not in the first season. No, that's interesting, because like one of the things we haven't talked about is that, they're in some other place, an alternate universe, the mirror universe, something like that. Like, are they still going to be wherever that is by episode 12, or they've gotten back, Amy? What do you think?
You were just saying that. And so I was going back to the wolf inside. Like, maybe that's, part of, like, Lorca took him to the inside of this parallel universe, the little bubble that they went. So maybe that's implication of their status of where they are in the universe. They're in one of those little pockets. So I don't know.
I'm trying to look up the term as well and see if we can find out, like, what does, because, sometimes they pull these out of, like, so vaulting ambition is the desire to achieve as much as possible. So that's what vaulting ambition itself means, the desire to achieve as much as possible.
I'm going to take a different view on the episode title.
Okay.
Because I have Okay, so first of all, I think that they're going to end up, I think it's been confirmed they'll be in a mirror universe, but I think they're going to actually kind of, for a little while, careen between different alternate universes, including the mirror universe, before they get back. And somewhere along there, they're going to encounter an alternate version of Georgiou. And however it might happen, they're going to bring her back into the prime universe. And I think, just saying here, vaulting ambition might be about trying to adjust to that. Maybe Georgiou had a different path or was in, a different part of her career in another universe and is trying to see what it would take to actually be a captain. I'm just thinking about this on the fly, but I'm pretty sure we'll see some version of Georgiou somewhere in here.
I don't know. This is the one that I'm having the toughest with, because I'm like, who on the ship is an ambitious person? And the only person that I can think of is Lorca, who seems to be an ambitious person, right? So,
and
vaulting,
Tilly, like Amy said.
Well, okay, yes. Tilly is definitely an ambitious person, but, she also knows that she's like a cadet. And what I don't get out of Tilly is she's not like, I'm trying to do this to advance right now. She's like, I have a goal in mind. I want to be a captain and I'm going to eventually get there. She's not like, I want to be captain tomorrow. How do I do that? And
I would agree. She's not vaulting ambition.
Right. I wouldn't describe her as having vaulting ambition either, but I don't know that I would necessarily describe Lorca that way either.
I so would.
I don't know, like Lorca's in charge of his ship. He's happy. He's doing his thing. He's in command. He's doing some shady stuff. He's not
happy.
He's as happy as he can be. I don't know.
No, he's not happy. There's something there which we don't know exactly what his ambition is, because he definitely, we think it's winning the war because he says that so many times. But I think that's the red herring to what he really wanted to do, which was take Discovery into one of those pockets of an alternate universe. So maybe that's his ambition. But either way, like, he wants to explore. There's something different. Winning the war was good for his ambition, but it's that next step, that discovery, discovering the universe. I think that there's something there. He knows something that I would definitely say for him, you're right. It's a vaulting ambition.
Yeah, I got the sense, I mean, it could be an act, but I got the sense there was something genuine when Lorca was talking to Stamets about exploring all of these other alternate universes. I think he has an ambition to kind of see what's out there. I mean, he's a curious person in that we see it mostly in terms of like weapons of war, where he's curious about learning the art of war and the different kinds of weapons. And
right.
I think he has some curiosity, is interested in seeing what else is out there. Maybe he can, study different cultures or weapons or whatever in other universes too. That's part of what I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think it's going to be a Lorca one. That's all that I know. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm okay with that. Now, this is the one that has me intrigued beyond all belief. What's past is prologue.
Okay, tell us, Brandon.
I totally think that we are going to have a complete and total game changer that is going to completely change our entire preconceptions of the show. And again, the past 10 episodes are the prologue. What's past, these 10 episodes that we watched, these 12 episodes that we watched, is simply prologue to what Star Trek Discovery will become. That's what I think is going to, I think that this is going to be a humongous game-changing episode. And that's just my thoughts based on that title.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it. Do you think that it's going to then jump to the 24th, 25th century or still?
Oh, no, I think they'll stick in this timeline. I think they'll keep it around here.
I think, it's interesting. I hadn't necessarily thought about it like that, like a huge game-changing thing. But, one of the things I think is going to happen, and it could happen in this episode, is that, so we've seen Burnham as a first officer in the first couple of episodes. She gets sent to jail as mutineer. Now she comes aboard a ship. She has no rank. She's a science specialist. I think something is going to happen. It could very well be this episode that is going to elevate her further so that things are forgiven and that she becomes the captain of the Discovery and Lorca is out of the way for one reason or another. I see that. I'd originally thought maybe that would happen at the end of the season, but if it's been prologue to this whole journey that she has that then allows her to actually command her own ship and go out on some voyages of discovery, or to kind of change what we've seen for the show so far, which is pretty much about a war. That would be interesting.
So then you think they're going to change what they've said all along, that Discovery, it's not going to be about a captain, and now it is going to be about a captain?
I do think, I think it's been said before that the main character isn't a captain, but there's no reason that can't change.
Okay.
And if the show's going to go on for a while, I don't know if it would just take years for her to get back up to a commander or whatever, or the focus of the show would shift. And this is the kind of show also that something could happen and Burnham isn't the focus anymore and the focus goes somewhere else. I don't know. I could see that happening at some point, but it's just speculation. But I've thought since the beginning that part of it is her journey to actually being a captain, because Georgiou says she's ready for that in the very first episode, and I think that hints that she'll get there sometime.
So what if this could also be like a flashback episode? Yes.
Could be.
Maybe
I
this
like
is how we
that
get
idea.
Georgiou in the second half of the season, is what if this is we get to see a little bit more of Burnham's past, right? Like Burnham as a youth, we get to see the attack by the Klingons. We get to see
more Star Trek Shenzhou.
More Shenzhou, USS Shenzhou.
Yeah, because wasn't it said that Michelle Yeoh would be more than just the first two?
No,
or was that just...
I think there was a really strong indication that it's very likely we'll see her in the second half, because in the first After Trek episode, they interviewed a couple of people in Toronto, and she was one of them, and they were filming some of the last episodes, I think, of the second half. So I think it's very likely. Herring. It could be, but it just struck me as something that I took note of at the time. Yeah, it could be a red herring, but why have the expense of her, being there just to watch the first episode? I would think if she was in Toronto, she was filming something.
I don't know. I think she had to have been there as well for the first After Trek, because she dies right after the first two episodes.
Yeah, but she could have just been in, LA or Skyping in from wherever like they do. She didn't have to be in Toronto.
What's wrong with Toronto? Maybe she likes
There's nothing wrong with Toronto. I'm just saying that Michelle Yeoh is
against Toronto?
Probably in Toronto if it's for Star Trek.
You got something against Tirana?
But anyway, that's one. Yeah, but I think that we'll see her. I could be wrong, but I think it's quite likely.
Yeah, we could see her there. It could be a flashback episode for Burnham, and we get a bit more of her story. Who knows? We will find out.
Or it could be a flashback of all of them. Maybe we're going to see Lorca with his decision with his previous ship.
The Baran.
I want to see that
pieces.
Story.
I want to see that too.
Oh, yeah. Man.
That was one of my other predictions, that we'll see what happens to the Baran. I think we have to at some point.
I know. We need a season. What happened? Well, maybe not a season.
Yeah.
Star Trek Baran.
Well, maybe. What if this is a past thing would happen with the Baran, and that's when we find out that Lorca got switched with his mirror counterpart?
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, I think the thing that argues for Lorca maybe being from the mirror universe is that weird triangular scar he has on his back.
Yeah, that's
yes.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I was puzzling it out while I was watching it, and the only thing I could think of, which I think other people have talked about, is some sort of torture or discipline in the mirror universe, like you see sometimes. A triangle,
is that the same symbol as the OA or something like that, or like that TV show? Isn't there a TV show where it's like that's like the symbol of it? I don't know. I'm just being silly here, but
I don't know. But no, there is some mystery there with that triangular thing, and they wouldn't have shown that if they didn't have an explanation at some point.
Yeah. Well, there were other scars, but that one was the problem.
Well, there was also like a line that was above it, right?
It seemed like it was a 0, like a triangle and a 1 is what it seemed like on his back here. 31? Oh, no. Now the Section 31 agents, they have to get scarred in order to become agents. They get branded. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, the war without, the war within. Amy.
I'm really looking forward to this, in part because I think there's going to be a lot of themes that show up from this. And we all know I love talking about themes in Star Trek. But, and we've talked about the logic versus the emotion and, how people are fighting within themselves. We've got Ash Tyler, trying to overcome his PTSD, and Saru with his fear versus peace. So I see that this one's going to have a lot of themes with it, and it might have something to do with, are we in the parallel in one of those pockets of space versus the regular space? I can sort of see that. Or is this an expansion of the Klingon war that's going on?
Mm-hmm. Justin?
Yeah, well, I think, the war without is the war with the Klingons, which I think will start to wind down by this episode. But then the war within, I mean, Lorca is clearly having some kind of war within himself. I guess, Tyler was having this war within himself. Burnham has this war within herself with logic and emotion and all of that. And, I think Stamets also has, some conflict inside of himself for, what he's doing and what's happened to his research, and who knows where it would be by that point. And Saru, his fear versus, trying to break out of that. I think there's a lot of characters that are experiencing a lot of inner conflict and discovery, and I think that some of those things might come to a head in this episode, is what the title's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a person episode, like a character episode for one of the people on the show, and that's what their war is within. I think, I don't know, I'm also led to the point, like maybe this is, again, Tyler and Voq, and he's which will lead in, this is my main theory, and it's going to lead into the next one as well. The war without is the Klingon war. The war within is the war within Tyler and Voq. And I think the war is that he's like, he doesn't want to be a Klingon spy. And, he wants to love Burnham and be with Burnham. And so, like, that's the war within him. He realizes who he is, but I don't know, that could be.
So if that's happening in episode 14, in what way in episode 11, The Wolf Inside, would Tyler be revealed to be Voq?
He will he'll cut himself and it'll be pink blood.
Okay.
He'll find out what it is in The Wolf Inside, but it's by this time like it's revealed where he's like really conflicted with it, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of interaction between L'Rell and Tyler throughout this season with her and the brig. I think there's going to be a lot of interaction with those two people. Almost like a Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling or something like that, right?
I disagree. I think L'Rell's not going to be around for long.
What?
Yeah. I don't know why, but I have this feeling that, she's going to try to activate, if my theory is right, that Tyler really is Tyler and he's just kind of unknowingly acting as a Klingon agent, that she'll try to activate him, and it's not going to go well, and she's going to end up dying. I really hope that doesn't happen, but I don't know why. But when I was rewatching, I had this feeling like she's not going to be around for as long as we think she might be.
So maybe the conflict with Tyler / Voq, that, he is woken up, no longer the sleeper. And so then he chooses love, and that conquers Voke, and love conquers all, and hence leads to the next episode title.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't know about that.
everybody.
Is that your romantic story?
No, actually, will you take my hand? I do not think is marriage. Everybody seems to think it's marriage.
I don't think it is either.
Most people are saying it's going to be between Stamets and Culber that I've seen online, and I'm like, just because, I don't know, just because.
But that's such a typical
couple.
thing to do, at the end of a season. Well, especially if it's a sitcom, I guess, to have a marriage or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think they would go a typical route like that,
right?
No.
So I think "Will You Take My Hand" is Burnham finds out who he is and is put in a situation where he's asking her to trust him. Right? And he's like, look, I need you to trust me. Will you take my hand? Right? And trust me. Because, yes, I'm the Klingon sleeper agent, but I need you to trust me right now. Trust that I love you. Trust this, trust that. I don't know. That's what so that's where, based on these titles, that's where my theory goes. It's a literal, will you take my hand? Will you trust me? Will you trust that I have overcome my Klingon tendencies? Or whatever. So.
I think it actually has something to do with between Burnham and Saru and their having to trust each other, because there's been a lot of conflict and distrust between them.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
I'd like
something's
that too.
going to happen where Saru will have to trust Burnham even though it's against his instincts, and he'll have to trust her in order to do something.
And while he's doing that, his ganglia are just going crazy. And she's like,
oh, my ganglia, I don't know what to do.
Don't trust the ganglia. Amy, what do you think? You think marriage?
No, I don't want to see any of that on Star Trek. But I will say...
No marriage on Star Trek.
You liked Riker and Troy getting married.
Except for Troy and Riker.
Okay.
No, Worf and Jetsy. Okay, so no, I take that back. So, but no, I think, I wanted to say that in my first rewatch, I did not believe any way, shape, or form the Tyler and Burnham relationship. I felt it was forced. It was written too blatantly, and I just didn't believe it. But in my second rewatch, I'm finding that I like them together more. And that really surprised me because I was just so against it on the first go around. So no, I don't think that it will you take my hand in marriage or anything, but I think there's definitely going to, like you said, talk about trust. I mean, we've got if Tyler is Voke, Michael killed Takuvma, and how important was Takuvma to Voke, and we've got Takuvma killing Giorgio. And
I haven't even freaking thought about that, Amy. Holy smokes.
What?
If Michael Burnham killed Takuvma, this
exactly,
is how important was he to Voke? I've never even thought of that. Holy smokes.
Oh, well. So to overcome that and say, take my hand and trust, I don't know how you can do that if Tyler is going to Voke. Retain those memories from Voke, or if we see Voke again. That seems too monumental to overcome.
That's funny.
I'm glad I could share another insight.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm like, what's if he is? What's going to happen when he realizes that Michael killed him? Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Anywho, well, that's in a nutshell. That's just our little predictions on the upcoming episodes. We'll find out at least.
But we're going to have a little grab bag of a couple additional ones, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
I was just about to get to that. So that's that based on the titles alone. That's just what we're thinking here. Now, I didn't quite clearly define what I wanted out of the episode so Justin did a lot of extra work for it, and I appreciate. So let's give me your top 3 predictions that you've got for your own here, Justin.
Okay, you noticed I managed to work in about 8 or 10 of them as we were
that's
going
fine.
along.
That works for me.
Okay, so here's one prediction that I have. Toward the end of episode 9, you see Stamets doing the one final spore jump, but you see the Discovery kind of separate into 2 and then come back together, and one goes up and one goes down.
Yes.
I think that means the Discovery's been duplicated, and now and when we get to episode 10, one is in the Prime universe and one is in an alternate universe.
That's nasty. I love it.
And that we're going to see something that we think is from one perspective of one ship, but is actually from the perspective of the other one.
Okay.
I think that would be really interesting because I don't know. I just thought, like, I saw it and I'm like, why would it split in two unless it was actually like duplicated? And they go in different directions, which doesn't happen otherwise. So,
yay, we
see.
get a Thomas Riker.
It's a Deadlock reference.
Well, it's a Deadlock, from Voyager. Yeah.
Whatever.
Whatever.
So that's my first one.
I like that. That's good.
All right. A second one. So, one of the things that I was noticing in, I think it was Battle at the Binary Stars when Sarek is saying that the attack on the Vulcan Learning Center forever changed Michael Burnham's destiny. Was it the Learning Center? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think that in an alternate universe, she's going to encounter a version of herself that did not experience that, and she'll be able to see how she might have turned out differently.
Okay.
Being raised with her own parents.
No, with the Vulcans still.
With the Vulcans still, but without that attack at the Vulcan
So why
Learning
would she
Center.
be raised with Vulcans?
Because the Vulcan attack happened after so the assault that killed her parents was one thing, and then the attack at the Vulcan Academy was something else. So like there's two.
Oh.
She's had two attacks in her life.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, now I'm trying to remember if Sarek was referring to the first one or the second one in that line. But anyway, I think I'll predict we'll see an alternate version of Burnham that didn't undergo something like that, and she'll see what that might have done for her experience. And my last prediction, I really hope this is true, that we'll see Andorians and Tellarites in the second half.
Okay.
I want to see it.
You want to see it? We'll see what happens. Well, we saw the Andorian helmet on Mudd's head, so, we got to find
That's
that.
right.
We got to find that.
And they made like at least 4 or 5 different Andorian references through the first 9 episodes, so.
Are we going to see Mudd?
No.
I'm not sure. I think it's possible.
Yeah, possible.
Amy is saying no, but
No, he's done.
he's done
Could
until
be.
the original series. That's good. Could be.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right on. Well, discussing our predictions for the second half of the season for Star Trek Discovery's first season is not all we've been discussing here on the network. So take a quick listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Earl Grey.
I actually hadn't watched the show, I'm embarrassed to say, but I sat down and I started watching and recording episodes, and I immediately had an idea for a script because I found Data to be the most interesting character.
To the journey!
So you could have, carbonated gog.
Carbonated gog? I'm trying to understand how this works. So the gok are presumably a little squishy or juicy on the inside. So you're saying that in order to give them the appearance of life, they replicate it with carbonation inside the gok.
Yes, to make them pop and fizz. Kind of like an Alka-Seltzer,
Like
pop, fizz, fizz.
candy gok.
Warp 5.
And I go into the job interview, and I'm just parroting back to him things he said in his interviews, but he didn't know that I was just doing that. I would say, the thing about Star Trek is that you could write it. It's a mystery one week, it's a Western the next week, and I'm literally word for word things he said in an interview. So that's how I always feel. And I joke with him now that that's how I got the job. But
The 602 Club.
When we're talking about the idea of context and history, I think this is the biggest issue that I see in this film, and with the Force Awakens too. And you put them together because they're going to make a trilogy. Is look, writing 101. If you don't know the past and the future of your characters, you absolutely 100% cannot write their present.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all of these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. That helps other listeners find us on the network. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose Send to a Show and select the Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. Justin, where can people find you when you're not predicting what's going to happen in season 2? Second half of season 1.
Second half of season 1, yeah.
It feels like season 2. I don't like this. This nonsense with the split seasons is just nonsense. That's what it is.
I don't mind it.
Oh, it's nonsense.
I think it helps for us to think about it and then rewatch it in between. Anyway, you could find me elsewhere on the network. Co-hosting Earl Grey, that's our dedicated TNG podcast with Amy Nelson and Richard Marquez. And you can also find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. And I do frequently tweet about Discovery, if you're interested in seeing that. And you can also find me hanging around the Babel Conference on Facebook.
And you can tag me at Brandon Mutala when you finally watch USS Callister, right?
Yes, me too.
You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, where we're talking about Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. It's my Alfred Hitchcock podcast. It's a lot of fun. And you can find me here on the network with my Star Trek Enterprise show, Warp 5, which I'm co-hosting with Floyd. And that is a whole heck of a lot of fun over there. We've had some great interviews. Be sure to check it out. Amy, where can people find you when you're not jumping into an alternate reality with your Spore Drive?
Well, you can find me hosting Postcards from the Edge. We have 6 more episodes coming up, so 6 more episodes of Postcards. And I also, as Justin mentioned, am on Earl Grey. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and favorite place is on the Babel Conference to enjoy and interact with all the listeners out there.
Well, if you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network at Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month, and we really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
And we would love to thank our associate producers.
Yes, we
Wouldn't
would.
we?
Yes, we would.
They're so great. We want to thank Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Lisa Slack, Tom Puleo, Shoaib Mirza, and Richard Rutledge.
And
thank
James
you so
Muldrow.
much. We have a new one?
We do, yeah. James Muldrow is our new one, yes.
Oh, yay. Welcome aboard.
Yes, thanks, James.
Thanks so much for supporting Trek FM and The Edge.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, don't forget to tune in next week to find out what we've been doing on the edge of Federation space, and we'll have some of our crazy theories answered. Dun, dun, dun.